And we are live.
Woo.
So let's see, can we be heard? Let's find out.
Can you hear us?
Can you
Hello,
hear us?
world.
Can we be heard?
Hello.
So this is the awkward moment, I guess. That awkward first moment, first show. I've got jitters a wee bit. Tatiana, you got jitters?
Kind of, yeah.
Yep. Phoenix, Robin, how are you feeling?
Whatever.
I like that confidence. We are all good. Apparently, we just got the message through to say that we are all
awesome.
good. So, well, shall we begin?
Absolutely.
Tatiana, do you want to do the honors or?
Sure, absolutely. Of course, my pleasure. So, hi everyone. Welcome on the ALT Control Show with your host, Alistair, and me, Tatiana. And we will basically talk with, let's say, playful hardware explorers or alternative controller games developers. Alistair and I are also doing this. So basically, this is a show by makers interviewing other makers. Maybe, Alistair, you would like to tell us a bit about alternative controllers. What are these?
Yep, so alternative controllers are controllers made using physical objects. These are games that might involve screens, but they might not involve screens, and could be made using your own materials, your own buttons soldered together, maybe motion sensors, maybe Arduino programmable boards, things like that. Or they might repurpose existing objects, things like wobbly door stoppers, for example. We've got someone on stream who's worked with those. Or paper shredders. We've got someone on stream who is me, who has made a game out of paper shredders.
And today we have Robin Baumgarten, a German independent game developer that is not based in London, but since recently. He's basically the master of LED strips and king of wobblers. And we have Phoenix Perry, the OG playful hardware priestess, also roller skating since recently. How are you guys?
Very good, thanks.
Great. So yeah, go on, Alistair, please.
So, yes, I mean, one of the reasons we wanted to bring you together onto this stream is that we know that you were working together roughly this time last year on an installation called Forest Daydream. So I thought it would be nice, sort of, as an introduction for our audience, to show them a bit of what Forest Daydream is, so they can build a picture of it. And also, you know, maybe you'll have a few words you want to say about what that is, and, you know, the process of making, things like that. So I'm just going to switch over to, there we go, and we should have a little video here.
Absolutely, yeah, great.
Hello, I am Phoenix Perry, and I'm the course leader here on the Creative Computing degree at the Creative Computing Institute.
So yeah, this was the creative process, the making
This
of
project called
Forest Daydream,
which
right,
is
Phoenix?
the
I
third
think
iteration
maybe you
of
can tell us a
project
bit
that I've
about
been
this.
working on for several years
Yeah, sure.
with
I mean,
many
there's a lot
different
of. Is
collaborators.
there any audio inside of it? Can you hear it at all?
Yes, we can hear it. I've just turned the audio down.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to turn the audio up?
I think part of the, I mean, I think it's really interesting because this
So
goes
the
into my
project
practice quite a
itself
lot
involves
and why I do what I do and how I do it. So I might just let it play.
Okay, I'll turn the audio back up.
which looks like a low poly video game hut. My thinking behind that is that we spend a lot of time in virtual natural environments when we live in cities. So pulling where we actually end up going back out into the real world and looking at it as an object. So that's why it looks the way it does and the kind of architecture it has. Beyond that, each piece is interactive, and then there are games which play out amongst the pieces, and they require multiple people to play. So something will be happening over here, and then you'll need a response to it over here. So there's no way to play it on your own, so you have to ask for help and ask for cooperation, which is one of the underlying philosophical points I'm trying to make in the game is that you can't do things on your own, you need to do them in groups. We have this class here that I'm leading right now on environmental computing and spatial computing. They are working with me on this project in an attempt to get experience working with a gallery, with a large-scale institution like Wellcome Collection. So it's part of the pedagogical process of getting them from point A to point B, of being ready and able to work with the public and knowing what that looks like. Then from there, they're going to proceed to doing full-scale works all on their own in public spaces.
Personally, I was rather focused on the programming of the microcontrollers. All the different parts have to interact with each other, have to talk with each other. So every button press has to be signaled somewhere else, and all the different parts have to be coordinated into one single game.
You've got sounds going on and lighting and all these physical models. So these really create an environment. I hope people coming would feel relaxed.
I worked on the soldering and the wiring, and I also helped with the construction of the dome and the trees. You are not designed for yourself, so you need to study how others behave and interact.
My name's Ben Kelly. My role in Forest Daydream, it was almost like a sound supervisor role to create an immersive soundscapes which evoke the rainforest, and also music composition. Los Casinos is an ongoing project with the Wampi, the indigenous community who live near the Ecuadorian border of the Amazonas rainforest. I spent some time with them 2 years ago and developed an ongoing relationship as an artist to help with their government, to help deforestation and indigenous land rights. The sound recordings, the soundscapes are very immersive, as again a hyper-reality, to try and aim to trigger this emotional feeling, this primal feeling of interconnectivity with nature. I hope it stimulates audience members to ask themselves questions of their own role within the social ecological system.
We need outlets for social collaboration, communication as adults, and we don't get them enough. And we really have to think about how play sits in a modern society in new ways.
It really is a beautiful piece. It's a shame that it's sort of time in the spotlight got cut short by COVID, but I mean, it is really good that you got to develop that. I understand that it's this had been a long a project that had kind of been brewing for a long time. Is that right?
It is. Originally, Adele and I designed it and built it for a maze in, I think, 2015. It was the year Robin showed Line Wobbler for the first time. And I was a judge that year. That's how I met Robin. But we showed it, and we had a whole situation where we tried to build it in Germany. So we had the plans and everything. And it turned out building things in Germany is not as easy as it sounds. There's a bunch of guild licenses and a bunch of weird ways you have to get things. And as a foreigner, it was a real surprise.
Wow.
And we really underestimated the amount of time that it would take to do. And we got it mostly done. And then it ended up it was supposed to be showed inside, but at the last minute, it got moved outside. And for anyone who's ever designed electronics, you know how wonderful that's going to be and how great that's going to go, particularly if you've made everything capacitive touch.
Right.
That relies on paint on wood.
Right.
So in the morning it worked when nobody was there, but by the time it hit the afternoon, gone. So and then by the evening, it was just pretty lights, and it was a real letdown because we put so much into it, and it just didn't work out quite as we envisioned it. and it was really stressful. I don't think I've been that stressed out in a long time. Like I was really freaking out. And Adele and we learned a lot. It was a great lesson. And we knew we wanted to do it again. And we knew that the project itself, this idea of collective interconnectivity and our interdependence with nature and the natural environment, was something we knew we wanted to go back to. And we kept trying to find, it's huge. It's a honking huge exhibition, right? It feels like almost I think it's like a 2,000 square foot space. Like it's massive. So it's not easy for me to just be like, I'm going to roll it out at this like little games festival. It's like, okay, I need a week to set up, 3 days to tear down, $2,000 to mount it. You know, it's like, it's not an easy thing. So it was shelved for 5 years.
Right.
And I just sort of had conversations with people about it. And then Holly Gramazio referred me to a curator who is doing this thing called Welcome to Play at the Wellcome Collection, which is an amazing museum here in London that does all kinds of interesting exhibitions. And it has a very colonial past, which I'm slightly uncomfortable with. Very uncomfortable with, but they do good things now, and they do a lot of interesting projects. And they did Welcome to Play about play in adults. And they also had a really amazing games exhibition downstairs on Play. And it was really fun to be in it. And they offered me a budget and a gigantic space. And the curators at Welcome believed in it enough to let me mount it again. And Robin basically has worked on me with so many things. I feel like all my games deserve a slight under tag. Also made by Robin Baumgarten.
Right.
The number of times I've called Robin in the middle of the night, like, help!
Because you were...
Deadline's 5 a.m. tomorrow. I haven't slept in a week.
Because you used to both be living in London, is that correct?
Down the street.
Yeah.
Down the street.
Right.
Yeah.
So Robin would come over and help me like surface mount solder a bunch of nonsense, or, you know, just finish things up or help wrap projects. And he's worked on so many of them. So of course this came up, and I just thought immediately of Robin because I thought that lit with his strips, it'd be beautiful. And I knew he'd just decommissioned the Christmas tree.
That's right. Yeah.
So he had a ton of LEDs.
Could you just briefly describe the Christmas tree for us, just for the audience at home who might not have seen it?
Sure thing. So that was like a commission a while back for Games London. And they wanted to make some like a Christmassy exhibition. I think they were thinking of arcade games first. But then we figured out we couldn't make a Christmas tree installation out of line wobbler. So that's like a weird double helix spiral in the shape of a Christmas tree with like two intertwining line wobblers. And there's like 100 meters of LEDs and I think 200 amperes of power. Crazy. Oh yeah, you have the strips there. That was, when was that? Like 3 years ago, I think. And we kept the whole thing in storage for like 2 years, but sadly nothing came of it in the end. So I kind of took off the whole electronics in the end and kept them in a box. And luckily we found a good use for them after that. And I think I have another use for them coming up. And like I still have lots of those LED strips lying around. So that's came in very handy.
We have some images of the King Cross Station Christmas tree. Maybe we can show it so people have a better idea what we are talking about. Just here.
Oh yeah. I'm just bringing them up now.
It was King Cross Station, I think. So that was like a big exhibit, public space and all. I mean, I assume it's a step for you to have this kind of exhibit in public spaces. It's not a challenge.
Definitely very interesting. Also, like, you know, you have to go at 2 a.m. in the morning because there can't be any visitors there, or like people who took the train while you're installing this thing. So like being at the station at night and setting it up. And then all the people who would destroy it basically by running into it with their coffees in their hands without looking. And it was over Christmas as well. And I was in Germany, so I had to phone someone. And have them go there at night and Skype call to repair. It was quite a fun exercise.
Looks like it. Maybe we should start telling people what's the plan for the show. Alistair, should I proceed?
Yes, please do.
Cool. So the plan for the show is that we'll kick things off by chatting about your history with alternative controllers. And we'll then take some time for you to show us something. Don't say anything, don't spoil anything at this point. But it's something you've made or something you're working on. And then at the end, there is an interactive element for our audience to join in on. So the audience, people in the chat, be prepared. And yeah, as the starter, actually what interests us is how did you start making playful hardware or even just electronics involved in game design somehow? How did life put you on that way? Maybe Phoenix, let's start. Yeah, oh, sorry, as you wish.
I just talked for a long time, Robin. You go first.
Okay,
right.
Let's go, Robin. Thank you. Let's go.
Sounds
Robin.
good. Sounds good. Yeah, I came to hardware from mobile games first. So I was making a couple small mobile games, and one of them was doing well. So I said, okay, maybe I'll make a sequel. And like the first one had like little buttons, and then said, okay, maybe I make a game that has sliders instead of buttons. So like, slowly increasing complexity. But at that time, I was also doing a lot of game jams, digital game jams, where you make games in a really short time. And around that time, I think I saw people bringing like Arduino kits and like a box of random nonsense and stuff, and sensors, inputs, outputs. And I said, okay, maybe I use real sliders to make these kind of little custom controllers for my game or something like that. And it kind of grew from there. And it was also just at that time, I think that was when the first ALT Control GDC was announced, and it said, okay, maybe this could be a cool thing where I make a physical controller and I build it around these sliders, and just kind of started searching online, what kind of sliders exist and what can you make with those. And, like immediately it grew in complexity as these things do. And I found there's like these sliders with motors, like, like from these high-end DJ poles, and said, oh, maybe kind of force feedback in there as well. And so it kind of developed very much from like this mechanic first approach where like I have this sliding motion I want to experiment with, and then go from there. And that was basically the first project that was really like an ALT Control project for me. Before that, I dabbled a bit with Arduino and dabbled a bit with games, but I never really combined the two, and I wasn't really aware of a scene, that probably Phoenix will shed some light on later. But that was my first dabble into that, and that was immediately shown at ALT Control GDC, GDC, the biggest games conference in the world, which was crazy from like, zero to like this massive show floor. And it was a great experience. And that basically got me hooked on making more hardware things and then having them shown there and at other places. And my sole motivation was basically just show weird stuff to people. And like, there's no, secondary objectives in the beginning, for sure.
Because your background is in programming from in the first place, right? You used to program AI and actually started researches, right, about this?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And you used to work with more traditional video game, like you even worked on DEF CON at some point as a consultant, I think. So that's quite a stretch. But do you think actually, so I tried to get familiar with 2 players reactor and 4 players reactor, which is, I think, the main mobile games you made. And it's already about local multiplayer. And there's this seed of what became later the kind of fun you can find in your installation. Do you think it's something that evolved from there, a will to actually share local multiplayer experience through unexplored devices?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and you mentioned that I definitely started from the programming side. So like as a typical programmer, you have no knowledge of graphics or aesthetics. So everything I made was incredibly ugly in the beginning, just programmer arts or Googling for royalty-free icons, and that kind of also pushed me towards like this concept of creating fun between players, where the fun or the content not necessarily happens on a screen, but between people, like this typical local multiplayer concept where people have fun with each other rather and just use the game as a vehicle, not as like the core of the experience. And that the two-player reactor game was surprisingly successful. I think it's a couple million downloads. I mean, it's a free game, so I didn't become rich of it, but that definitely is like a game where you press a button, and that gave me the idea to make a sequel with a slider. I never made the mobile game in the end, but just stayed with the hardware. But it's definitely what got me into this hardware.
Nice. I have follow-up questions, but of course we will maybe switch to Phoenix first. I have the same question for you, Phoenix. How did you get into hardware and electronics in games? What was your background before that?
It's really easy. Sorry, my voice gave out while I was sitting there not speaking for a minute.
Okay.
It's amazing. I had to continually talk. I originally started doing a lot of video work. So I was an independent filmmaker. So I was already kind of really interested in analog processes and making film. I also had a development background, and I moved to Silicon Valley actually to work in an art gallery, a film gallery. Why not?
Wow.
It's in San Francisco. And then I got a job in Silicon Valley as a dev. And I ended up getting really, really sick because Silicon Valley in 98, 99, and 2000 was crazy.
Right.
And I slept under my desk and got really sick and ended up disabled. Didn't work for 5 years. And during that period, 2001, the Xbox came out and my hands were so ducked. I couldn't, after years of playing games, I couldn't play this thing. And I was so angry. And I was like, I had to watch my boyfriend at the time play Splinter Cell, which I really wanted to play. And I was like, these controllers are garbage. And I also couldn't use regular input devices anymore. So I started building giant buttons for myself to do like video mixing and film hacking and stuff. So I hacked a Videonics video mixer with like giant silver knobs with my friend Travis Throkel, who went on to found Obscura Digital. And we built this giant interface for me to make films with and experimental video. It was really awesome. And from there, I was just like, interfaces suck. They need to be better. They need to not hurt people. How about that? Just baseline. So I went down like a really long path of exploring interface design that led to eventually me asking, do I need a controller? Can I do it all with like a camera and machine learning? So I started collaborating with Rebecca at the time. She's now Dr. Rebecca Feebrink. She's very fancy now. Back then she was doing her PhD and I was running an art gallery and it was all kinds of chaos. But she created this tool called Wekinator that lets artists use machine learning to create gestures that will control things. And you can just use a camera. So I had this band called Black Swan. We played at Baby Castles, which was really fun, and did a bunch of like crazy, weird, experimental gesture-based control stuff with the Kinect. And I was part of the early Kinect hacker community. I was part of this lab with Doug Wilson, Kaho Abe, Catherine Isvester, Chris DeMurio, a ton of other amazing people were in the lab at the time. And I really just wanted to do a game jam around hardware games, around building games with things that were not, controllers. So this was like 2011, I think. I think it was 11. And I looked at Chris, I was like, we got to come up with a name for this thing. And my friend Sarah Grant had just gotten this control ring that I adored. And I was like, Chris, I want to call it Control something. And Chris was just like, what about Alt. control, like alt dot, stuff on Usenet. And I was like, yes. And then, that was really awesome. Make Magazine sponsored it, as well as Adafruit, It Got Orange Press, Kaho, and Catherine judged it. The games that came out were super fun and wacky. And there was the one that won was this like multiplayer tank that was made with cardboard, and it was like a whole tank interface, and it was distributed amongst 4 people. It was super great. And then all kinds of weird games, Kinect games, hardware games, weird interfaces. The only rule we had was you can't use traditional input devices. So that was very exciting. And then we did a second one, but it spread like wildfire. We got an email very shortly after from some Russian folks who said, can we do it in Russian? We were like, yes. And then literally it went to Copenhagen like within months. And then a couple months later, it's at GDC. And I was like, what the hell happened?
Wow.
And it just went, and now it's the whole thing. I'm doing my doctorate on it, which feels very crazy and weird. And I've interviewed everybody from the old days, except for Tatiana, who I should probably interview. And kind of trying to get a sense out of like why people do what they do, how they got into this, how they got here. Because I just came up with a snappy name for a game jam. But this was going on before that. I didn't create this community at all. It was already, like as Robin said, people were starting to show up with weird things everywhere. It was just hardware games was kind of what I was thinking of them as. And so I obviously wasn't alone. And Chris is amazing. He now runs a hackspace called NYC Resistor in New York. And he's a cool cat. So that's kind of how I got into this.
Okay. Actually, what I read, so it feels like there is 2 parts of this, like maybe coming from the videos to games and playfulness. But I've read that you actually, for some years, worked with Kinects and gesture-controlled games. So I assume that segs smoothly from more traditional video game, let's say, to alt control-ish stuff. Did this phase maybe is not the right word, but you got the idea, like that this moment working with weird controllers, but still like the industrial one, like Clip Motion, Kinect, stuff that are based on motion capture, shaped somehow your creative process after that on alt control, on the way you do alt control games?
Not so much, because I was already doing it with the camera. The only reason I chose the Kinect and started helping with the hacking community is because I could use the Kinect at baby castles in the dark. So like I was already building like weird alternative. I was making these like group play puppets that had little lily pads sewn into them with conductive thread that kids could play with around their emotions.
Emotional growth, I think.
The emotional growth is one of them. Yeah. Emotional growth was actually ended up being a screen installation, but this one was kind of a piece of emotional growth. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe, Alistair, we can show emotional growth. Because
how the hell did you find this?
I spent days stalking you online, so
I don't even know where this is.
Okay, but that's really nice. So it's really a video of a work in process, I guess, where we can see.
Phoenix
So basically what I got was
Mary,
there
if
is
you're
2
watching
puppets
this, start
with
of a
lily
project.
pads, and based on the gestures and movement you will do, it will react differently in the game. And the point is to trigger gentle play in a way, if I got it right. Okay.
Oh my God.
So yeah,
So it was a really work in progress video, but we can see actually the electronics in it, which I really enjoyed, and already some conductive wires, which you keep on using right now. So it was really a step, I guess, in the process. So it feels like it, at least.
Have you ever noticed this, Robin? It's downstairs when you take your shoes off in my house. I have it sitting there.
Maybe.
By the record player.
I think I've seen this, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, can you tell us a bit, Phoenix, what was the experience intention you had with this?
I mean, you
work?
nailed it. That was it.
Okay.
That was exactly it. It was the
Okay.
first thing that I worked on with Rebecca. So yeah, I really wanted kids to be able to explore like using gesture to kind of create different, there's this like plant in the center, and the way you moved it changed how the plant grew. So I was really interested in looking at that space between gesture and what was on screen. And so that was the first time I tried that. It was pretty wild and out there, especially given the year. This was so early.
I mean, I
but
think
that's what we are here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think there's this really interesting connection between both of your work here, because you've got, you know, the work that you were doing with this and the work that you were doing with Connect as well, Phoenix. And, you know, and I feel like, you know, where it feels like you're taking these is in a very kind of gestural direction, where it's about making lights and sounds and effects. And it's not necessarily about sort of game goals. It's not necessarily, you know, these aren't things that can be won or lost. These are things that can be toyed with, things that can be explored. And I kind of feel like that's something that I've been seeing in your work, Robin, quite a lot recently. Is, you know, so I can see in the background, I can see your Wobble sphere there, which is a very recent piece of your work, which I understand evolved from an earlier piece called Baumgarten, and that evolved from the line wobbler, which we saw earlier as the Christmas tree. And my understanding of that piece is that that it is much more about kind of creating the visual effects, and, you know, it is about, you know, creating these beautiful swarms of colors with the LEDs. So, I mean, I don't know, I'm just curious, like, is there something that's kind of, are you both being driven by a similar desire to create, you know, pulling you through, or is this actually just kind of, is this separate desires kind of pulling you in a similar direction, you know? Like, could you tell us about the sphere and where you're trying to go with that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll show it later as well in the demo section. But I think it's also a bit part of the process of like working with these things is like, for me at least, the interaction and the experiment comes first, and then I experiment myself and like use it to see what can I do with this, what can it express, what can others do with it, and all of this is an ongoing process that isn't by any means complete, right? So I try to just kind of see and basically interact with the device itself to see if it kind of tells me something that it should be. And so with like Wobblegarten and Wobble Sphere, it's definitely more kind of a reactive, kind of like exploratory, playful vibe, rather than where with Line Wobbler, where it was like a very kind of straight edge arcade game, right? So with, but you know, that might change in the future as well. So right now I do like this kind of ambient vibe it has, and I'm trying to make more modes. I want to see, can you do a game on it, like an arcade game? Can you make multiplayer games that are goal driven, right? But I do like this kind of just like as a mood object, as a kind of very ambient game. I do like this, how it came out. In the beginning, I was very much, maybe it's my programmer mindset thing. Ooh, I need to have a goal. I need to have rules. I need to have mechanics, and there needs to be a win state, you know? It's like very classic thinking of video games, very much old school in a way. And it took me a long time to overcome this and saying, okay, no, I'm cool with this. I'm cool with experimentation. I'm cool with exploration, with like no win, and I'm still struggling a little bit with it, so I'm kind of still thinking, ooh, can I make something like a real game out of it? But I think that's like not the right way of thinking in a way.
Nah. I've never made a real game. The only thing I made that was real, I was paid for. Like, you know, real. What the heck is that anyway?
Exactly.
That's interesting, Robin, about the time it gets you to make your creative process, or even maybe identity in a way, evolve, because basically, apparently, so you made at least 32 jams between 2013 and 2015. It's a lot. Some of them were like awesome jams, not to say that the others are not, but I'm thinking about Zoo Machines, which used to be like a really great out control jam. I'm thinking about Splash, which is on a boat, the train jam where you cross the US, and of course, Exile in Denmark, which is really nice to be isolated in the countryside. And it's also, I think, where you did Line Wobbler, which happens
That's
to
right.
become your most famous piece, I guess, or at least it looks like it's really the piece you're known for, at least nowadays, for sure. And the thing is, after Line Wobbler, you didn't do that much LED for like 2 or 3 years. So I was wondering, like, is the fact that Line Wobbler got 10 awards and 110 exhibits, I counted them all. So I'm short my numbers. Did at some point, like, you felt like, okay, I'm doing a lot of wobblers and LEDs. I need to do other stuff like Knife to Meet You, Rotator, Schrodinger's litter box, and rubber arms, because rubber arms is really about the playfulness you're mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't really, at least in the beginning, there wasn't really like a need to kind of continue with LEDs. There was just like basically a random output medium I chose. I didn't even bring an LED strip to that jam. That was just there in a box that I think Tim Garbos brought along with him, with like arcade buttons and everything. I just came with the idea for this joystick, for the spring, and I brought this and a sensor. And so the whole game came together somewhat randomly and chaotically at this jam. And but you know, in the end, I really love LEDs as an output medium, as you now can see. But especially in the beginning, that was just, you know, random choice. So it wasn't really something I needed to step away from in the first place, because I didn't really step into it too much. It was just okay, let's use this, and then at the next jam, let's see what else is in the box, basically. So it was very much guided by just random discovery, and that's also why I did so many jams. I really enjoyed this process of kind of, you know, taking a random thing and saying, oh, what is this? What can this do? What affordances does it provide? What interactions, what games can be made out of this? And this process I really enjoyed, and I think it, you know, takes a while to kind of hone this skill as well, to kind of come up with these things, and that's also one reason why I did so many jams. And in the end, all of the jams I did were entirely hardware driven, like no solely digital games. But yeah, it was a random step into like the LED world, but I definitely feel at home there now. It feels like a cool way to express myself without having to rely on, you know, fancy 3D render technology, or even pixel art or kind of complicated things.
Do you think the minimalism of LEDs is actually a constraint that helps you express yourself in a way?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I as I mentioned before, I'm definitely not an artist in a way that I can magic up beautiful things. And in a way, you can see that with Line Wobbler. Even the colors are very, you know, standard colors: red, green, and orange, and a little bit of blue, I think. But yeah, it definitely helps. And it also, the limitation to these kind of minimalist things where you don't have text, where you don't have even images to convey meaning, helps me a lot with coming up with jam ideas.
Maybe we should show a quick video of Line Wobbler. I know it's a really famous piece, but it's possible that some people don't know what we are talking about for the last 3 minutes. So just in case. So this is one of the many videos of Line Wobbler you can find online. Robin should probably talk about this, but yeah, we can maybe mention that the process, the creative process, the inspiration for this is a funny story that Robin told in many interviews. Maybe Robin, you can just in few sentences tell again the story of the cat.
Of the cat, yes. So it's basically all about this joystick, right? This joystick is a spring, and the inspiration from this came from a cat playing with a doorstopper spring, reaching with its paw under the door, and flinging that spring. There it is in the video, or probably slightly delayed for me, but when I thought like, oh, if cats can have fun like this with springs, maybe humans can too. And from there, it was a really small step to putting a sensor on it and then figuring out what to do with it. And in a way, it was good luck that I found this LED strip and kind of came up with this game together with Matthias Maschek at this game jam. And then from then on, I took it further and kind of honed it into this kind of really compact and condensed experience that it is now.
Awesome. So as time is running quickly, maybe we could come back to Phoenix and talk about what I think is your most famous game. Playful experience. I'm thinking about Boat Party, of course. Is it fair to say that it's your most famous experience? At least that's how I heard about you, Phoenix.
I think it's the one that's shown the most. So that's definitely true. It was a really wonderful project. Just grew and grew and grew, and I worked on it for several years. I plan to keep working on it in different versions and different iterations. It's a game about holding hands with strangers, and and it's got two modes. The first one that you're seeing in the video now is mode 1, which was my initial mode, and I developed it with Frida Abtan. And I was really interested in how you could use gesture to explore sound. So there's a lot of gesture stuff going on in the back end of Bot Party and a lot of subtle signal processing that makes it work that way. People sometimes think it's like at the makey, and I'm like, no, I wish. I wish it was that easy. No. Does the makey know what point is contact has been? No, it does not. But it was really a delight to work on, because I personally don't like to touch people. I don't like being touched. So I decided to kind of dive into that. Like, why? How do we do this? So letting 3,000 people touch me in 1 year was an experience. And it really changed me, and it showed me how much people need a hug. Like, really, like some people played and got like teary, and some people freaked out, and some people kissed each other. And I saw all kinds of things happen with Bot Party. And I ask you to touch a stranger 100 times in 3 minutes. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But this is the freeform mode that's all sound exploration. The second mode, which I think you'll see a little bit later on in this video, is, and Robin's in the later part of it too, it is goal driven. So I decided to experiment with having something that had a goal, and then people went crazy, and I was like, wow, if you put a goal in something, you get to go to IndieCade finally, or not IndieCade, but GDC finally. I've definitely been at IndieCade, but IndieCade is not quite so restrictive. But you get to go to GDC finally.
Yeah.
That I've been to GDC once before with my game Crystal On, so that's a little harsh. But yes, this is a goal-based version, and tons of people can play it. Like, I've had over 20 people play it concurrently. And it's just a game about human kindness and interconnection and pro-social behavior, and triggering as much dopamine in your brain in 3 minutes as I possibly can to make you a little bit nicer for the rest of the day.
As time is running quickly, maybe that would be a good transition for you, Phoenix, to show us actually the parts of Boat Party you have. Alistair, do you think we should do this?
I need warning, because you guys had me disconnect from Zoom, so I would have to stand up and bend over and stuff.
That's
sure.
Absolutely fine. Well, while Phoenix is switching over the cameras, what we could do is introduce the interactive element.
Absolutely.
Because we have come up with a little interactive element for you all to take part in at home, which our lovely guests will be taking part in towards the end of the show. So our challenge for you at the end of the show, for like the final 5 minutes or something, will be to come up with a new idea for an alternative controller or an alternative controller game. made using objects suggested by the audience. Now, the audience can type into chat. If you type anything into chat beginning with an exclamation mark, that will become a object that our guests might be able to use. So, for example, I'm just going to type into someone's typed cactus into the thing, and that should be added in. I've got a little bit of wrangling to do to make this work. There we go. We've already got people adding objects to the toolbox. So in the final segment of the show, go ahead.
The stream is a bit messed up. Yeah, the stream is a bit messed up right now. It's because we switched to have two cameras coming from Phoenix. Everything will go back to normal in a minute. Sorry for the interruption, Alistair.
That's okay. Do we want to switch to the simplified view just for this while we've got the 5 cameras up?
Yeah.
Yep, I will do that. There we go. There we go. We planned ahead.
Yeah.
So yes, well, Phoenix, do you want to tell us about the bots that are on camera?
Sure.
Now?
Sure. So this was a exploration into sound that started with BabyBot. So I, like Robin and like you, Alistair, have no idea what I'm doing most days. And I just know that I want people to interact together, and I make these kind of provocations and stick them in a gallery and see what comes out the other side. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but when it's good, I try and keep working on it. So this, Zoraida Butler, who's now the curator at Amaze, curated this in her Playful Arts Festival in Holland. And I loved being in that show because she let me build basically anything I wanted. And I built this little bot, and it's a synthesizer that connects to a step sequencer that is big enough that multiple people can play it together. So I just sat there and people played with it and made sound. And I was really surprised, just like the act of making music together, how often people would just stick around for like a good chunk of time. So that was kind of cool to see. And I knew that I kind of had something with that group interaction. So then I made the version that you saw in the video, which is these the gold or the blue, the pink and silver bot, which were just the open-ended sound exploration. There were a lot of good things that came out of this, but then there was a lot of things that were, I thought, could be optimized. So from here, I did a bunch of playtesting and collected a bunch of data and kind of thought really deeply about, the player comments that happened at the time. And from that came this version, which is the version that kind of has, this version is actually inside this version. So this version has 2 buttons, and you can either go back to play this mode, or you can play this mode, which is the goal-based mode that people love and is really fun. So these 3 ladies come from that, and they light up. So there's no indicator of which bot needs to connect to which bot. The eyes light up, but it's not a strong enough indicator. So these boxes glow, and that just works. But yeah, each time along, the game design got better, the interaction got smoother, and I kept adding new rules. I worked with Charlie Ann Page on this version. And she is an amazing designer and amazing developer. And we had a really good time working on this. So that's and Brian Jackson did the sound for this version. So.
I mean, I'm curious about the sort of the process of creating this. I mean, was it something that you had a kind of, a kind of idea for how it was going to work, and that you kind of put into practice and put into the world? Okay, I mean,
no idea.
Right. Okay. So was there a point where it kind of clicked, that you had the right combination of bots and inputs, that you went, oh, this is the one where I feel like it's working. This is the one where I feel like it's doing what I want it to do.
I don't know if it's behind me. I got an oscilloscope for Christmas after the year that I did this one. And I realized that I got really into looking at what would happen with the oscilloscope with like different things going on because I was just interested in oscilloscope. And that's when I realized I could probably use machine learning to like detect different interruptions.
Right.
So like I could probably work out like if some signals were crossing that the distortion would be clear enough in the waveform that I could pick it up with machine learning. So after that, I was like, I had the idea and I wrote Holly Gramazio again. And from Now Play This, who is lit. I feel like Holly and Robin have done such good things for me that I owe them so many cups of tea and so many cups of coffee and snacks and cakes. But I said, hey, Holly, I've got this crazy idea. How about this game that is about that lets strangers make music together while holding hands? And she goes, I love it. And she put it in Now Play This, and that was this version. So from this version, I listen to what players say a lot. I take a lot of time to analyze what they say after I record things. I take notes. I think really hard about it. And I knew that what worked about this version was how the interaction that was occurring between people touching the object together. So that's kind of how this arose.
Right. That's
Okay.
fascinating. It's
Yeah,
really, like...
and maybe as we have 8 minutes left, Robin, you also prepared stuff to show us, so maybe we can transition, well, without further ado, actually.
Yes, so I have two things. One thing is already plugged in, actually, and it's actually the LED strips you can see behind me. I'm not sure how well they come out, but it's actually a little bit on the lines of like a kind of a line wobbler. What else can you do in that space kind of experiment? And I found these big, let me get this up here, big boards that are used for for physiotherapy. So they're used, you actually stand on them. So they're like, I think when you have, like broken an ankle or something, you kind of trying to relearn your motor skills by standing and kind of balancing on it. And all I did is really just kind of glued a little accelerometer down there. And then you can already see it going on in the background. So it's basically just two axes. And if I can hold it straight, so like one is like left and right, and the other one is forward and back. And then I said, okay, what can I do with this? So right now the game is very, very simple still. It's just like very much like inspired by line wobbler. It's like you collect things. It's like you can see the little lava thing. But yeah, it's very kind of tricky to play. I can try it while and hopefully not falling.
Yeah, sure. Please do. Please do.
Don't get hurt.
I don't know if I should look into the camera or, well, let's see. So, well, you can see the blue lines. I don't know if I'm standing.
No, we can see really the LED. That's
in
better. Yeah.
There's a secondary mode with playing with your butt. So I'm going to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Safety mode.
Yes, so you can kind of control them and collect these green things, and then there's like lava, and but yeah, so this is very much a very early stage of the game design. So I'm still working on what things should there be, and I have like a little key and unlock mechanic, and I'm gonna work more on this. And the idea was to build something that doesn't use your hands. I mean, I guess it's a little bit inspired by Corona, right? Yeah, for sure. So saying, okay, where can I go without maybe with like line wobbler and all the other wobble experiments? They need touch, and also with the Baumgarten and Wobble sphere, capacitive touch. So you can't even use a glove, right? So it's like not ideal for a pandemic scenario. So like, what can we do? And I found these boards. They work quite well. So I'm gonna keep working on this. And maybe there's like a pass into physiotherapy as well, like making the games useful for actual. But I have to talk to actual experts to see if the movements are proper. If not, you just don't learn kind of weird behavior because you don't really use normal movement. And then I made, it's quite noisy, I guess.
I would have asked if you didn't show Wobble sphere, because it's technically impressive.
Yeah, so this is Wobble Sphere. It's a direct successor to Wobble Garden, which is the same thing but flat. So this is Wobble Garden but round. So it's a 72-sided polyhedron, very much like the football shape. So it has pentagons and then hexagons between. Each side is made out of a circuit board, which I had custom made. Which is surprisingly easy now. I always compare it to ordering T-shirts online. You need to do a bit more, but once you have the design, you just send it off and you get it back a couple of weeks later. And it's not plugged in right now, so I don't know if we have time, but maybe I can plug it in while we do something else. In a minute or two.
We can
show it off.
Well, we have 4 minutes, so maybe we can start to have a look at what the chat sent us.
Yes. Well, I mean, if you want, you can plug it in while we're, because I really want to see it lit up. But
yeah,
why not
I want
do
both
at the same time, you know?
Exactly. Chaos. This is what we're looking for.
Yes.
Love chaos. So I've just got to bring it up.
Phoenix, could you shut down the second camera so the display will come back? Awesome.
Let me work out how to do it.
So I'm going to press a button and we're going to see. I'll wait for Phoenix to be ready.
I'm working on it.
That's
Sorry.
all right.
It's
No
kind of
worries.
hard.
No problem. No problem. Just take your time and disconnect from the other Zoom session. That's great.
Sorry,
And-
my laptop is behind me.
Okay.
So it's like literally.
Robin
back
managed not to hurt himself, so please do the same. We
time.
don't want anyone hurt. This time. Not on our show, okay?
There you go. I'm trying to leave.
I definitely got much more cuts and burns and everything since I started doing hardware games. It's
Oh my God.
second nature.
I cut myself today getting this out, and I was like, "Yep, shit just." Oh, sorry. It just got real. I'm bleeding. Yep, that's right.
Oh, no.
All right, just need to find a way to hold this up.
Oh my God, that's
Oh, beautiful.
Oh my God.
Okay. So it's I don't even know the mode it is in now, but it should react to when you touch it, it makes these circles.
God, that's hypnotic.
Yes. And
Wow.
this one is just a very slow mode, and I found it worked really well when I put the when you touch it somewhere, the opposite side of the touch turns the opposite color. So when it sits on even on that shelf back there, except the USB cable is not long enough now, it really lights up in an in a contrasty way, which is kind of cool. So this one is very ambient. It just kind of does like little light things, and there's like a few different modes, but I don't know if maybe I can bring them up. Just need to press random numbers to see. Probably gonna crash. Ooh, yes.
Ooh.
So this one is like little worms and stuff.
This is fine
God.
for epilepsy, right? I'm just thinking about this right now. Like people
Yeah.
that have epilepsy don't have a problem with this,
There
right?
shouldn't be fast flashing except when the power
Okay.
supply stops working or something, but it should be fine.
Okay.
That's
But yeah,
amazing.
I think we're running low on time, right? So we should do something.
I mean,
I don't know. I can leave it here and.
It's not a hard. I mean, it's not a hard cut-off time. So if you both have time to continue, is that fine with you to run on a bit?
Got no
or-
life. No life. No life.
Robin, are you just in the same boat?
Yep, absolutely.
Super.
So we have a question in the chat that I think is quick to answer and interesting. Do you think you could make a version of Wobble Sphere that is strong enough to be a football? Or do you think it would be way too fragile, too weak?
It could be possible. I mean, it's let me just put this down for now.
Just a quick question because we are running late, as you
I
said.
think so. It's surprisingly sturdy. I just put it together with some 3D printed stuff, and it's like you can probably drop it and nothing happens. It's going to be painful to kick, but maybe that's
that's that's the player's problem. Got it? Okay. So okay.
I just want to say there is something really, really beautiful about it as a piece of work, which is how three-dimensional it is. You know, when we're in alternative controllers, we are working in a space where, where the 3D world is kind of part and parcel of what we do. But this is a piece that kind of, you know, like a piece of sculpture, you know, with a sculpture, you have to move around it to see it from all the angles, you know? And Wobble Sphere has the same thing, is that, you know, when you see the light start at one point and move around the sphere, you want to move around with it. You want to enjoy that kind of, it kind of puts you in a space where you want to, like, see this thing from every angle. And I think there's just something really kind of beautiful about that. Sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to blurt in with that.
Using the space in interesting ways is definitely one thing you can kind of do that is different from just on a screen. VR goes in a similar way, I guess, but it's much nicer when it's tactile, I feel.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also saw Phoenix was holding up something that was 3-dimensional and round and beautiful.
Oh, this was just a piece from the original version of Forest Daydream that I originally designed to throw around, had an accelerometer in it, and it lit up. And the goal was to be able to toss it about, and it would control sound being thrown. But I quickly learned that the sharp edges were not your friend, and someone hit their face right here.
Whoa.
Oh no.
And that's when I stopped throwing it. But it's really beautiful.
Is there a party that would want to see if you could make the same thing with something softer, or is the kind of the hard objects, is that a kind of limitation you have to work with?
No, there's cushions inside Forest Daydream. My plan with the next version is to make those cushions reactive and soft, because without doubt, kids loved those things. We saw so many amazing interactions. They were so good for laying on, and kids stacked them and threw them and rolled them and dove onto them. And I really want to light them up with LEDs and an accelerometer. There was a limit to how much time I had with building it this time, but I absolutely love things you can throw and love things that you can like toss, because I saw an amazing installation once by an arts collective called Lovid, and they had a laptop, and they played the Bee Gees' Staying Alive on it. This is a thing that happened in my gallery at Devotion in New York. And they were passing the laptop back and forth, and then each time they took a step further apart and further apart and further apart, and they kept throwing the laptop. And it was so awesome, because the Bee Gees would be like, staying alive. And it was so good. It was so wonderful. And that was a show that we did with Baby Castles and a bunch of other amazing people, like the art collective Jody and Kaho were in it. Aaron Bartold. It was a fun show.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I mean, it's a shame we are going to have to wrap up soon, which is a real shame, because I'm really enjoying hearing about all of this. But we do have time to reveal to you your 5 objects. So are you ready to see what you can come up with?
Sounds good.
I'm terrified.
All right.
Let's go.
Your objects as chosen by Twitch chat are a hula hoop, a saucepan, a bucket, a Roma robot, and soap.
Soap.
Do we have to use all these things together, or can it be one of these things?
Follow your heart. What's
as much as possible, I'd say. As much objects as possible.
Well, the hula hoop is like an obvious movement device, right?
So obvious. A smart hula hoop is something I've wanted to make forever. I have one, but it's just not been hacked.
There are LED hula hoops, so that could work well.
There are.
So nice. Yeah. The bucket, what can you do with a bucket? You stand on it, so that makes it harder, or you put it on your head to limit your vision. The soap is very interesting as a soft, slippery. It could be something with like touch as well.
Soap the floor.
Oh, here we go.
Soap the floor. Use the hula hoop.
Danger zone.
Standing on the bucket. While making a grilled cheese sandwich. How long until you die?
That is it.
Or playing a beat on the saucepan.
Oh, yeah. I feel like the soap with conductivity could be kind of a cool input as well, like where you touch the soap and different resistances. Maybe the soap bubbles. I don't know if can you make those resistive? That would be so cool.
Can you
Oh my
make
God,
soap?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I
Well,
mean,
we have to
if you make it
investigate.
with salt, you totally can. So like
Hmm.
you would just have to make it, I think. I mean, we have to investigate now. Now I have to know. But in theory, if you put salt in soap, it would totally be conductive.
Yeah, I wonder
Just like
how it
Play-Doh.
affects the surface tension and stuff. But yeah, that's one thing we need to investigate. And I guess when it's in a big soapy mass and you touch it at some places, you should be able to test or figure out like, you know, like how much you touch it, like how strong
Like
you
big
disturb the
pile
soaps.
of bubbles.
So that could make sounds, right? Like, that'd be cool. Yes, I like
Why
this.
did you move? Why did you move?
You have to do it remotely now, or you come to Berlin as well. Who suggested soap? That was a very good idea.
Soap was so good. Oh, bouncing on there was a robot bouncing on a robot. Oh,
we had the
Lord.
robot, yes.
Oh, the kitties. I feel like Robin needs a cat to come into this robot situation and ride the robot because Robin, cats, robots.
That's a good plan. Yes. No, I definitely want to have like games for animals as well. That would be so cool. Yeah, but I think this is already a lot of brain food. So very cool suggestions for sure.
And the chat went gave a bunch of great ideas too. Apparently the roamer robot is actually a type of robot developed by the MIT in the 60s. I have to admit I've never heard of it before. So sorry if I don't know this. Sorry for my ignorance. I will make something for this. And we have a question that came in the chat. So again, a quick question. With all those interactive LED objects, are there any light painting projects? Did you do anything with light painting?
I haven't done anything with it, but it's definitely on my radar. Like the LEDs would be able to do it. You just need like really high refresh rate and then do some fancy masks, and there you are. It would be a cool project, but I haven't done anything yet myself.
Same for you, Phoenix.
What was the question?
Oh, did you work with light painting at some point?
No.
Okay.
I did live experimental video. That's enough.
Great. I think we are running slightly late. Do you have anything to add? Maybe I wouldn't like you to stop without mentioning something important.
I think the one thing I'd like to say is that it is so wonderful to be on a show hosted by other people I know get what I'm talking about. And that is just so cool and so lovely. So thank you for doing this. And thanks to IndieCade for hosting it.
Thanks a lot for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you. And it's really easy with talkative guests. I'm really glad you have so much to say. It makes our job way easier. So that's cool. Robin, a last word maybe?
Something to say? Yeah, I mean, like I would say, like you should, if you haven't tried, yeah, it's time to wrap this up for sure.
Oh
yeah. Making things with hardware is easier than ever now, so you should definitely give it a go if you haven't. I just played with my partner with the Makey the other day. You don't even need to program, and you can get like super physical things right out of the box within like 5 minutes. Just open a browser page and click something together. So I encourage everyone to make weird hardware experiments, and it's a cool growing scene, and it's very much in its infancy still, I would say. And so there's a lot of space for innovation and cool ideas. It's not as overcrowded as mobile games or whatever else. So we definitely need more cool people in the space and to join our ranks and make weird experiments.
Yes. Come bleed with us. Come cut your fingers and fail to sleep and use electricity plus water. Great idea.
Well, I think that's an awesome last word. Come bleed with us. It's definitely not ominous at all. So let's wrap it up.
How many
Um,
times have we cut ourselves today, people? Today?
Yeah.
It's been 0 days since the accident in Game Lab.
And that's the fun in it, obviously. Absolutely.
It's true. It's true.
So maybe let's go, Alistair, with the last words we have to mention.
Yes.
Um,
Thank you very
go on,
much,
please.
everyone. Yes, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, IndieCade, obviously, for hosting us. Thank you to Phoenix and Robin for being here and speaking to us. It's been a fantastic, like, really inspiring conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you in the audience who have come and joined in and asked questions, added objects, and been part of the conversation. We will be back with this show in 1 month's time. But next week on the Beyond Screen show, it will be Playable Theatre, hosted by Celia Pierce. She's going to be interviewing a group called Dacha, who make amazing things using Twitch Theatre. We'd also like to announce that submissions for IndieCade 2021 are now open. So if you're building something, be it for a screen or for without a screen, please do submit to this year's festival. Look for the IndieCade website for how to do that. Well, I guess we hope you all have a fantastic evening, a fantastic day. I've been Alistair. It's been lovely to see you. Tatiana, any final words from you?
That was awesome. Thanks so much for being here with us. Thanks so much for the chat to the chat. It was awesome to have you. Really looking forward the end of the pandemic so we can play these games we're talking about. But for now, I will just call it a night and say goodbye, everyone. Thanks again. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
I've got to change a thing. Bye.